Hello, and welcome to the 2025 Absolute Good Author Showcase. I am pleased to be here with my guest, author Bolanle Ambonisye. Welcome, Bolanle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having
me. You're welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Your book is titled, Are These Really My Kids? Tapping into my purpose, power, and patience as a parent. You are not new to this, but you are true to this, as they say.
That is true.
Why did you write this book?
I wrote this book to deliver on a promise that I made to parents, because I've been doing parenting workshops since 2007. Started with a little bitty, quick, easy reading book, about 23 pages, that details the one thing that we can do as parents that dramatically improves our effectiveness. It makes life easier for our children and for us and for anybody else who has to deal with our children, and also creates a solid foundation for academic and life success. All that in about 23 pages. So I started doing book readings with groups of parents, and the discussion that was generated from the book readings turned into exercises, and then so the workshops were just expanding, and now it's up to a full 24 hours. And Jo Lena helped me to create the manual that I use now in facilitating the full 24-hour workshop. And during the workshops, parents kept asking, oh, can I get a copy of this book for my sister? Can I get one for my cousin? And I wasn't able to sell that one just because it needed to be facilitated. And so I got with you again, Jo Lena, please help me turn this into a standalone book that I can sell, for parents who aren't in the workshops themselves.
Now, you said it's the one thing parents can do, but you didn't tell us what it is. Are you saving that for the book, or can you tell us what we can do?
Sure. Sure, I can tell you. Okay. That one thing is to teach our children to obey us, basically, to teach our children to follow our instructions, because as parents, we have a lot of things that we want to make sure that our children know, but we don't know, and it's not our fault, but we don't know that the way that we begin that is to first teach them to listen to us. We have to teach them to listen to us before we can teach them,
So you're saying, like, when the parent says, do those dishes, and then the kid doesn't do it, then you say, do those dishes, and then they don't do it, and then you say it again. What happens? Why does that happen, and what is the result?
Well, it's because we as parents, this society doesn't have a process that equips us as parents with the information, with effective information, and with accurate information and effective tools that help us to know how to behave with our children and how to teach them how to behave in a way that we're asking them to do. We don't have a standard process that equips us as parents with that kind of information. So we're all pretty much making it up as we go along, depending on how we feel about how we were raised. We're either doing what our parents did, or we're doing the opposite from what our parents did, depending on how we feel about that. And so that information gets lost.
Gotcha. In your book, you speak about the collective condition. Now, you spent a lot of time talking about it, and until we worked on it, I didn't know what that was. Can you just kind of tell us what the collective condition is and how it's affecting our society?
Indeed. Our collective condition, especially here in America, we're born into this society. It's if we look at the history of this country, and it's the way that the country came into existence, it was a pretty violent way of coming into being. There was a lot of stealing and decimating of people and land and all of that good stuff. And then, of course, the enslavement of us, African people. We're the descendants of those who were enslaved. And so we're living with the impact of that. Anybody who's gone through what we've been through as a people would be in the condition that we're in. And very little respect is given to our condition, because if we ourselves have been taught to view our condition with disdain and with shame. But we've talked about diabetes or high blood pressure. If you know that you have diabetes or high blood pressure, or if people know that you have diabetes and high blood pressure, they'll treat it differently. They'll respect the fact that, oh, okay, you have diabetes, you can't do this, you should do that, that kind of thing. But for us, being impacted by generations of inhumane treatment, it's understandable that we would be impacted by that. But we've been made to be ashamed of being impacted by it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes. And how does that affect our parenting? Because you speak about neglect and you also speak about abuse in the book.
I do, because this is one of the things that this is part of the generational curse that passes from generation to generation, just because this is how we've been treated, and in our efforts to shield our children, we'll often do things just to keep them from being subjected to the larger society. And our children, we end up traumatizing our children, and our children then traumatize it just keeps going from generation to generation. Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks very well about this. And I made a reference to her in the book.
You also told me something that just struck me. There was a picture of a Caucasian young lady back years ago, and she was looking at a man after he had been lynched.
Yes.
And she looked at him, and you said, look at her face.
Yes. I make the recommendation that we view Dr. Joy DeGruy's clip, and in there she speaks about this portrait, and she makes the point that because it was a man hanging, he had been burned and lynched, and so if this were a puppy, she would have been just completely torn up, But whatever she was taught by her family, by her community, made him less than that. And that is the impact on them. And then so that is something that rarely gets a lot of attention. It's something that we don't really pay attention to, is that kind of, what is the impact of that? What is that called? Because our condition, they give our condition a lot of names, and we do too, psychic trauma, slave mentality, crabs in the barrel, that kind of thing. But we rarely look at them and give their condition a name. And so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what parents can do to, I like, because I'm older these days, I like to say these kids don't have any home training.
Right.
You don't exactly say that in the book, but what are a couple things that parents can do to have their children obey?
First and foremost, the first thing is to keep our attention on our children until they've done exactly what we told them to do.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna interrupt you. So you mean don't start scrolling on your cell phone or talking on the phone after you told them to do something?
That's right.
Oh, okay.
That's right. When you give them an instruction, keep looking at them. Pick that up.
Yeah, I want to do it now.
We're still on the same right. We're still on the same team.
Right.
When I'm looking at you, because I'm looking at you and I'm expecting it to happen. And even when a child is not paying attention and they hear it, pick that up. So they may be doing something, but then they'll realize, oh, you're looking at me. Oh, okay. And so they'll do it. That's part of us teaching them to listen to us and to respond to our voice. So we're doing our children a disservice when we give the instruction and then leave, because our job is to help grow their self-discipline, because we're putting that external control, that's external discipline, so that they can develop the internal discipline. But when we don't keep our attention on them, then they're not growing it. So when we do that, if we just do that one step, we don't even need step 2 and 3. Okay? If we do step 1, keep our attention on, we're still on the same team. And when it's done, we can, give them a high five, give them a compliment. When they're executing the instruction, we're making sure that they're doing it correctly. We can correct in the moment. when we're there, we're present. When we're present, then it gets done and everybody's still on the same team and we're going on. But we make the mistake, we give the instruction, we leave the room, and then we get distracted, and we forget about it. Or then hours later, days later, we come in and we're furious.
Yes.
And that's not the child's fault.
One of the things you also say is that people don't care about kids. Are you talking parents don't care about kids and society doesn't care about kids?
Yeah.
And kids know it? I mean,
yes.
Come on.
Yes, that's one of the uncomfortable truths about parenting and about being adults. If you really think about it, you pay attention to just listening to our entertainment. We have this whole F these kids movement going, F these kids, I shudder when I hear comedians on the stage talking about their children. They're talking badly about their children. And I just cringe at it like, wow, what do you think is the impact? What do you think that child is feeling? That kind of thing. And it's being woven into entertainment like, oh goodness, no, I don't want to have children. No, I don't want to have these children. And if we do have children, I hate these kids. We say it out loud and it's, we're not paying attention to the impact that we're making. We don't realize that we're making this an increasingly child-unfriendly society, and it's coming out it's coming out even in school. It's happening. It's making its way into the way that our everyday interactions with children, we don't protect them. Mm-hmm. And so when I say we don't care, I'm talking about the definition of the word care, which is to provide what's necessary, for the maintenance, the growth, the development, the protection of children.
Okay.
And when you think about that as a group, we're not doing that very well.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question. If someone were to get this book, what would happen? What would you hope would happen for them? That they would do what?
My hope is that they would have the willingness to actually read the book, but go through the exercises to fill out the places where there are places to write in, because really the purpose of the book is to pull from us parents what we want to see happening in our homes and comparing it to what actually is happening. And when we make the time to do that, then we see our own way to meeting our family goals. And sometimes we don't have goals. And if we do this, if we go through this process, it helps us to create goals, because we all do have something. We do want the best for our children, but because none of us really give birth to our children going, you know what, I think I'm gonna mess you up. People don't do that, but we still mess them up just because we don't have a plan. And so this book helps us to create our plan. It's an investment. It's an investment in breaking generational curses. It's an investment in bringing the vision that you have for your family into fruition.
Very good. Well, I want to thank you so much. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm so proud of you. You turned a little nugget book into a big book, and I think so many people will benefit from what you've shared. Mama Bolanle.
Thank you. Thank you very much.